What we're going to do is find his ankle. Oh! All this stuff he doesn't do when you're doing this. You can hook and dig, grab the ear, turn your head a little bit.
Oh, God.
On the side of the nose, into the sinus cavities. You can push up under the nose and then straight.
What's your name?
Eric
Eric.
Mays.
Eric Mays.
That's correct.
I guess you don't even need an introduction. You're so famous from all the NBC videos.
Yeah, right. That big goofy bald guy.
Well, I mean, you're a nice, big, goofy bald
Yeah,
guy.
thanks. I've been called worse today, as a matter of fact.
Just today.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably that Eric Kettleborn.
Yeah, he ruins it for all Erics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's rough.
Surly attitude, bad grammar,
Yeah.
horrible posture. There's nothing to recommend that guy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he's just ruining the Eric name for you. I
Really
guess.
does. He shares DNA with baloney. A lot of people don't know that about Eric Kelton.
Oh, that's unique.
Yeah.
Well, on a more professional note.
Oh, God. Yeah.
So what was your first introduction to martial arts?
Martial arts, when I was 16, I got introduced to a karate class. It was a Filipino variant, I couldn't tell you the name of it, of karate. It wasn't very fun. All they wanted to do was spar. They were a very competitive class, and I was a big kid. And so I sit there, I'm in my karate pajamas, I'm pretty excited. And they say, hey, we're gonna spar. And I say, okay. And the only guy my size was a second-degree black belt who he just got done doing a jump, spinning back kick, kicked the heavy bag off the ceiling, broke the chain. And the instructor says, now go spar. And I'm like, I don't even know how to make a fist. So I lasted a couple months and I left. And I started doing a lot of sword stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a bit of a dilettante, so I've done everything. So I started at 16, but I've dabbled. I've done it consistently for about 38 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I did a style of bujitsu, which means like warrior arts. And that was fun because it had a little bit of everything in it. So I, have done a lot of Japanese aikijitsu, kenjutsu, kappojutsu, you name it, a jitsu, I've done it, sort of thing. I've got a 5th degree in Hapkido, and I did a combative system, and I've got a belt in archipelago combatives and stuff like that. I just like learning things, so I'll study anything.
Yeah. So martial arts really has been a lifelong pursuit for you.
Yeah. I like learning things. It really came from when I was 6. The first book I ever read was called A Princess of Mars by Edgar Rice Burroughs, about this guy, John Carter, who goes to Mars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Written in the very early 1900s. And I'm like, that's the greatest thing I've ever heard of in my life. So I need to learn how to sword fight, and I need to learn how to do survival skills. So I ended up learning all that stuff, just in case I get transported to some cool place. I want to be the guy that can take over the kingdom.
Yeah, still waiting.
Yeah, I am waiting. It better happen fast. I'm falling apart.
Oh, that's great. So you run a self-defense school, is that correct?
Sure. Reflex Mode Self-Defense. I live in Colorado here, and I have programs in 2 different schools. I'm very fortunate to have a really good relationship with this martial arts association. We've been teaching out of there for 20 some odd years. So I teach in 2 different locations. I teach private lessons out of my house, and then I teach corporate things where I'll go and do, usually as part of their wellness programs or part of their safety programs,
Mm-hmm.
I'll come in and teach a really basic self-defense class at companies as well. And then I'm fortunate that I get to travel around the world really teaching MBC too. I'm a pretty lucky dude.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds pretty amazing for someone who's interested in the arts like that.
It's a lucky thing.
So you teach MBC now. Are there other martial arts that you're drawing from in order, like when you're going to do these wellness programs and things like that?
To a degree, MBC, the thing that sets it apart than any other system, more than the techniques, is the logic behind it. And its goal is always self-defense, right? And we say MBC is all about stopping power. It's not about killing somebody, it's not about being a kickboxer or jiu-jitsu guy. There's no competition. It's just being able to go home. So when you structure and focus your teaching on that, then what you can do is you can say, well, I'm going to take something from traditional Aikido, and I'm going to say, well, we're not going to spend 20 years learning how to fix it. I can kind of apply Mike's teachings or the way of looking at it, right? And say, this is what you're going to do right now. And then you get an immediate response. Now, will they be able to do everything that a guy with a black belt? No, but they don't need to. They just need to learn how to raise their hand or whatever the technique is, right?
Right.
So I draw from lots of stuff because, as I said, I'm a bit of a dilettante. But there's really only so many ways that you can hit somebody or you can throw somebody or whatever. And it doesn't matter if it's from Asia or from Africa or from, Canada. It doesn't really matter. There's only so many ways to do it efficiently, So I pull from lots of stuff and I try to match it to the people that I'm teaching. My corporate gigs are kind of the lowest common denominator of material. So if I said, think of the most basic self-defense, it's too advanced. Whatever you're thinking is too advanced.
Yeah.
Because I'm targeting people who won't walk into a martial arts school, who are intimidated at the very thought of doing something with another person, people who spend too much time in an office chair behind a computer, who have very little aggression and even less physical ability. Those are the people that the course is aimed for, and it works really, really well. I teach some, I make some jokes, we teach some statistics, some physics. We end up using this thing that I have called the Protek Key to kind of like the final victory to show them, you can actually do something. You're not helpless. There's more than just this. This is just a teaser.
Yeah.
But you can do it, and that's the important thing, is to show that you have an option regardless of where, your physical or mental state.
Yeah. Those Protek keys are great, by the way. I fly with them all the time.
Oh man, they're the best. They hurt so bad.
Yeah. When did you start Martial Blade Concepts?
2003 is when I first started. So I was in this guy named Steve Matakowski. I met, and he taught this system called Combat Aikido. And so I was training with him. And in many ways, it's very similar to the old school martial blade concepts. We would draw from all kinds of stuff. A bunch of people got along really well. We would just beat the holy hell out of each other. Everybody was, of similar mindset. Maybe some had different skills or better skills or worse skills. A lot of throwing each other and punching each other and a lot of weapons, but for the most part, fairly realistic. And Steve had met Mike, I believe, because he did a video for Paladin Press. And he said, hey, Mike, why don't you come down to my school and do something? And this was, I think it was still Martial Blade Craft at the time. I don't think it was Concepts yet.
Yeah.
And Mike's like, come on down. And so Mike did some evil stuff. It was really great. And I was cackling and giggling the whole time. And he's like, well, yeah, I got class on Wednesdays at Paladin if you want to come. And I started to do that. He sent a picture to me of, he sent me this picture. And it's got one guy's doing a Crusada, and there's an ICHF, Combat Aikido Federation, patch on this guy's shirt. And I'm like, these sons of guns are stealing MBC. Who the hell is this? I should know these people. And I look, and it was me. But the person, I had hair and a goatee, and I didn't recognize myself.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really fun. I showed it to my son, and he didn't recognize me either, so I don't feel that bad. Yeah, but 2003.
That's a great story. 2003. So you've been doing it for quite a while now.
I've been really fortunate. Anytime with Mike is good, but I've been around for a lot of the development.
Yeah. Well, how long after that did you become an instructor? I'm like, your love of martial arts, I figured, it's just a natural extension.
The thing about MBC was, especially like at camp, there was never going to be instructors. It was just us getting together and training, and more people showed. Now, MBC is not a big system, and kind of on purpose, right? Because when you get more and more people, you get people that don't quite fit in as much as we would like, right? But after a while, it was like, well, we kind of have to designate that somebody has kind of completed the system. Then that's when we started doing instructors. The funny thing is, I didn't know, well, at least I think it's funny, I didn't know you had to tell Mike you wanted to test. So at camp, we're getting ready to test, and somebody says, hey, I need a partner. I'm like, yeah, I'll partner with you. I did the entire test with them. And they're like, this person's an instructor. And I'm like, wait a second, you had... So I missed the first testing, and then I got to do the second one, which was fine. But now I'm instructor 007 is my instructor number. But I'm still a little bitter about that because I wanted to be in the first testing group.
That's the best number, however.
Yeah, I think it
that
really
is quite funny.
It's very fitting. I mean, I tend to wear a lot of tuxedos, so it works for me pretty nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now you have to wear a tuxedo at camp
who
next
doesn't?
year.
Yeah, I should get like a little tuxedo shirt.
Yeah, absolutely. So it seems these days, I kind of talked to Eric and Marty about this, that Your self-protection, people don't view that as something associated with themselves anymore. It's like an outsourced service. And they can't really imagine, defending themselves. So what is your take on personal safety and responsibility in that?
Well, I think the responsibility is a big word. As the saying goes, when second count, law enforcement are minutes away, right?
Yeah.
So they're gonna investigate. They're not gonna keep you safe, and it's up to you to keep yourself safe. But I think a lot of that isn't so much the hands-on and wiping out a ninja clan. It's more, making smart decisions. If you ever say, I wouldn't go to that bar without a gun, then you shouldn't go to that bar,
That's a great point.
And also I think you'll find the people who are really good at this stuff don't necessarily have something to prove. So road rage isn't real. I mean, I yell and scream at people who can't make a left turn, but I'm never going to get out of my car and throw a punch at somebody.
Yeah.
Right. And it's because I know a lot of people, and I know people that don't look scary that would mop the floor with me, and I don't know who that guy is in the car. And part of it is just being aware of it's almost never worth it. Right.
Right.
But the other part, and this is my job, is studies have shown that body language and the way you carry yourself is one of the overwhelming factors that determines if you get attacked by somebody or not.
Yeah, criminal pre-selection.
Absolutely, right? And with a little bit of training, you literally walk differently. And so if you can walk in a way that makes you an undesirable person to attack, right there you're a lot safer. And so I'm a firm believer in everything. In knowledge is power. The more you learn, the better off you are. But just like MBC's goal is stopping power, right? Also, the goal of self-defense is not to learn everything. It's how do you keep yourself safe versus how does a 4'11" woman do it? Because it's not the same thing, And for me, that's what I enjoy. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I like teaching disparate groups. I like teaching people with physical problems. I tell a lot of people that I specialize in broken people. So, if you've got a bad back or shoulder or neck or knees, you're not some 20-year-old combat athlete. Anybody can teach those guys. I like the people that need it, and I'm going to have to find a way through me being creative and a good instructor to get them there. That's my challenge, right? And that helps me because I start seeing things more direct, more efficiently. And then it comes to realize, I very rarely, I used to do security in bars and stuff like that. And I hate it, by the way. I'm like the most non-confrontational person in the world. I can't stand it. But I've done it. I've walked people out of bars. I've stopped fights and blah, blah, blah. But that's always the last resort. And I just can't stand doing it,
Right.
I've been in fights, I've pushed people on the ground, whatever. I just don't like it. I always feel like if I have to put my hands on somebody, I lost. I didn't plan ahead. I wasn't clever enough to diffuse it. I just don't like that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole other game outside the game of self-defense, which people don't think about, and that's self-awareness, understanding, the grooming that happens when people are pre-selected and
weight shifts and furtive glances and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's also, I'm a talker. That's what I like to do. And I spent 28 years running restaurants. So I'm very customer service oriented.
Yeah.
And what happens if you're good at that is you learn to read people, and part of my background was a lot of semi-internal arts. So I'm very good with going with somebody's energy. So if you're mad at me, I will never just say, no, you're wrong. And it's the same thing with a fight. If somebody wants to fight, I've learned how to kickbox and all that stuff. I don't like it. I'm not especially good at it. Mm-hmm. I will always kind of slide to the side and do something sneaky, right?
Yeah.
And that's my personality as well. You can be as angry at me as energy's energy. Doesn't matter if it's a punch or a shout. And so I'll let that go by and I'll try to redirect it so we all end up at a happy place.
Yeah.
It's
very Tai Chi of you.
Yeah, something like that. It's harmonizing with the universe and levitating over a lotus blossom or something.
Yeah. I mean, standard stuff.
Yeah, everybody does that.
to go back to an earlier point, I think, mentioning one thing that I first noticed when I started doing MBC, I came to camp. I was just like, wow, there are so many unassuming people here that could literally whoop my ass. And it's a real testament to, I think, how good and consolidated the skills of MBC are. Because you have people of all different ages and abilities, and they can really hold their own and protect themselves. It's really an amazing thing.
Several crazy things about MBC. First is the way it's organized, and Mike's genius of this. Not only does he make it so that you can learn it and do it like right away, if you teach it the same way, the next generation will also have that same success. And that doesn't really happen, at the Shaolin Temple when they learn from the Grandmaster and then they go off and start their own school, and then as it slips down, it gets diluted till nobody can really do anything, right? The way, if you really do MBC the MBC way, you get tremendous effectiveness. And part of the reason is because you're not distracted by extra BS. So when I get a new student, I'll teach an angle one, a high forehand, right? Mm-hmm. And they're like, okay, but you haven't shown me how to defend against a reverse grip knife attack. And I'll say, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It could be a reverse grip knife, it could be a screwdriver, a box cutter, it could be a stick. It doesn't matter what you're swinging. The end of your hand is literally the least important thing of the attack, right? And then being able to apply physics to it. So instead of saying, well, you've got to duck and weave, okay, that's totally fine if that's what you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. But Mike says, stop it at the root of the motion. So I stick my hand out. Oh, anybody can do that.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so effective, that you're not distracted by, well, I could do all of these things. You could, but you don't need to. You'll learn, I'm going to poke you in the eye and then we're done. Or I'm going to break your ankle or whatever it is that I'm going to do.
Yeah.
That's what's so nice about it.
Love it. Well, over the last year and a half, 2 years, it's still kind of a continuation since last year. Crime has been up in quite a few cities, a lot of areas. What would you tell someone who's interested in learning how to protect themselves, but they're very timid about it, or there's just something intimidating that they're struggling making that first step?
So the number one thing that stops people from coming to a martial arts school is fear of walking into a martial arts school. Because if they've never done one, what they think is going to happen is you're going to get jumped by Cobra Kai and they're going to beat you up and stuff. But honestly, that's what stops people, right? Now, martial arts and self-defense are not the same thing at all. So I'm not advocating that. But what you have to find in order to be effective is you have to find a system that matches your personality. As I said, I'm not an aggressive person and I don't like confrontation. So Krav Maga, which is very aggressive, it's not for me. None of the techniques there make sense for me because that's not the way I operate.
Yeah.
If you have somebody who is a 20-year-old combat athlete, Tai Chi is not going to be an effective one for them, most likely. You know what I mean?
Might be good for the internal nature.
Well, don't get me wrong. Tai Chi is great for everything, for a lot of things, right? But you have to do it a really long time and then have an instructor who understands it before you actually figure out the self-defense aspects of it. So if you want to learn self-defense, find out what you can learn.
Yeah.
If you want to just learn to be effective self-defense, hands down, and I'll argue anybody in the world with this, I don't think there's a better system than MBC for it. And personally, I don't think there's anything better than a knife. And people will say, well, gun, yeah, absolutely. Guns are great. Or not, depending on your point of view, right? But a Glock only does Glock things.
Yeah.
Right? And a knife will open a box. And a knife will cut things. A knife will take a splinter out of your finger, right? And a knife has other uses than just killing pirates, right? I know people who've worn a gun and never drawn it. The vast majority of people who carry a gun have never drawn it, right? I don't know anybody who carries a knife and has never pulled it out to do something with it. So
Right.
after a while, what happens, I think, with guns for people is I went 2 weeks, never got in a gunfight, pulling my pants down. It's hard to sit in the car. I'm going to stop carrying it. And one time you need
Yeah.
it, you don't have it. Also, the other problem I think with guns, and I'm not bagging on guns, is that people don't train. I went to the range. I shot paper at 7 yards. It's got nothing to do with self-defense, right? You got to learn stress draws, and can you do it at 2 a.m. while standing on a Lego? And do you know what's behind the bad guy? And
Yeah.
are you, with your 88 Magnum, are you shooting through the next 3 houses on the block, right? That, for me, that's not it. You know, and I there's a guy named Mike Seeklander who's kind of a friend of NBC.
Yep.
And when I was on Best Defense with Mike, I think we were in Kansas City shooting a thing. We were standing around, and Mike obviously is a big proponent of firearms. If you don't know him, he's a great guy. And he says, "Mays, you carry a gun?" And I'm like, "Nah, I don't care. I have a concealed carry, but I don't ever carry a gun."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, why the hell not?" I'm like, "Because I carry a knife." And he's like, "What?" I go, "I practice with a knife every day, and I have a reasonable belief that I can defend myself with a knife."
Mm-hmm.
So I don't practice with a gun. I'm not planning on practicing with a gun because I could get my trainer out and it costs me nothing except for that initial investment of buying a trainer.
Right.
And even then, I don't have to. I can use my thumb and get the same training.
Yeah.
With a gun, I've got to spend ammo, buy ammo, and stuff. And certainly, there's things you can do with a gun that doesn't require ammo, right? But I don't have the time to get as good with a gun as I am with a knife, right? But I also believe that if anybody can use a knife and stop somebody, you cut the quad, don't care who you are. I've taught my son to do it, right? He's 11. He has less aggression than I do.
Mm-hmm.
But I know he cuts a quad, you're going to fall,
Right.
you know? And for me, that's what makes it, because it's accessible, in some ways, it's better. Knives are for right now anyway, a bit more socially accepted than firearms,
Yeah.
right? Very less people anyway freak out if you pull out a knife and you cut something, especially Colorado, right? Because everybody spontaneously hikes here, so
Right.
people everybody carries a pocket knife. You know, not the same in Boston or Manhattan or something like that, but you can carry them. They have a lot of other uses, and they're infinitely effective right away, I think.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I like a knife.
That's a good point.
Yeah, thanks.
What's your favorite part about the MBC community? You've been in it almost since its inception. It seems like it's been around.
Yeah, I like the people.
Yeah.
You know, one of the restaurants I worked at, it says we want to hire people we like, people like us. And there's a lot of people who like self-defense and like martial arts, and they like, you know, weapons, and they kind of like the concept of violence with not the actuality of violence, because it's a very different thing if you actually, you know, hurt somebody versus I pretend hurt somebody, right?
Yeah.
But MBC people, almost without exception, are incredibly generous and helpful and kind. And when you come to an NBC event, there's just no ego, which is the craziest thing if you think of this as a martial arts thing, because it's not just a martial arts thing. I've done hundreds of seminars in my life I've been to. There's always somebody who's like, well, my system's better than yours, and you don't train with us, so we're not going to show you this. And there's just BS that I don't like. It doesn't happen at NBC. And people are like, well, that's a secret. You can't learn it. Also, doesn't happen at NBC. You know, and so it's this idea that you're surrounded by 50 to 120 people who are just like you and want to learn the stuff that you want to learn. For me, you can't. It's a rare thing to be. It's like walking into Cheers.
Yeah.
You know, with weapons.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, I was at a martial arts competition one time, and what do they call it? Like Lei Tai, where they're kind of like sparring and for points or something like that.
Yeah.
And that was going on, and a Wing Chun master and a like Southern Praying Mantis master, they were talking like, well, I don't understand why you guys do a bong sao like this. And it escalated into a full-on fight between the two. And everyone was watching the mat where it's just sort of this patty cake going on. And we're watching these two masters fight. So, I mean, even in a friendly competition setting, there was quite a bit of ego there. And I, you know, in the 3 camps I've been to, I've not experienced any anyone who's had any sort of ego.
I think I started coming to camp, I think in 05, because I got married in 05, and I think I went the month after I got married, I think. Either 05 or 06. But I've never seen anybody do it. And it's hard because I've seen people who are incredibly high-level martial artists and from vaguely related systems will show up. Or not even vaguely, fairly close to that in Filipino martial arts stuff, right? And they're like, I got this, right? And then they come here and at a certain level, you go play with them and you share a common language. And then there'd be like, wait a second, and especially if you apply the MBC idea of always asking, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Which is one of my favorite things. I work better if I have a gestalt of the idea of the whole thing. So I like that you can ask why about absolutely, thank you, sir. Wow. If you, anything we do, you say why, and we have a reason for why we're doing it. If we don't have a why, then we shouldn't be doing it, right?
Yeah.
So I was working with him, like, why do you do that? I'm like, I don't know. Then maybe you shouldn't do it. And it was it's fun to watch when somebody who's super high level, they've forgotten how to learn because they've known everything for so long, you know? And then he wants to learn it, but he can't make himself not do what he did before.
Yeah.
And that's, for me, because I sympathize, I've been there, that happens more here at these things than I've ever seen anywhere else. I taught a seminar, this guy was a 7th degree black belt in Taekwondo, teaching him hubud, one of our basic drills, right? He ended up walking out. And he told me later, he's like, I'm not used to not being the one who knows everything. and he goes, I was so frustrated.
Yeah.
Because I'm a grandmaster. How do I not know how to do this?
Yeah.
And how do I not? And he was amazing, right? But he's like, I can't make myself do it.
Yeah.
NBC does that to people all the time.
Yeah.
And then the aha moment, you were like, wait a second. That's the same as this. Oh my gosh. I love that. The system is just rife with it everywhere you look. And the deeper you look, the more you find. That's what makes it so much fun.
From my limited experience compared to yours, I would have to agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Well, that is, we're getting close to 30 minutes here, and I think we need to start camp back up
Let's
again.
get out of here. Let's go stab each other.
Yeah. Well, Eric, thank you so much for your time.
Anytime. It was a pleasure. We're glad to have you in the family.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be in the family, and you're a great instructor from my experience, and I really appreciate your teaching style.
Anything, anytime, just ask.
All right. Let's get back to it.
Oh, got it, man. So what we're going to do is find his ankle. Even if he's got this here, right? Just find that and dig. Yeah, Protek Key. Oh, wait, it's worse. Come here. So now you want to come over here. Mount again. So you're going to come down low on me. All right, we're going to do this part super duper slow. Okay? So you're down here. You've heard of a punchy stick? Yeah. Okay. We call this a punchy Protek. So just come down low like you're choking. Yep. And down low. Now put your leg down. And we're doing this just to save you pain. Okay. Okay. So I can rake and you can fall, but we're going to do a bridge and roll. Okay. This is here, and like I said, we're doing this slow. Put your foot flat, so I don't want to hurt your ankle. Okay. I'm going to bridge up, super slow. Look what's about to happen.
Oh, God.
Oh. Yeah. Little touch. Oh, yeah. I like it, but wait, let's get worse. Worse than that. Mount from behind. Oh, you're counting that. More punchy Protek.
Wait, Mike, is that a Protek in your pants, or what's happening here?
Now he puts this here. All right. Put your arm around the throat. So good about your life. Right, same thing. All I gotta do is find a portion of him. Here. Put that on the ground. Bridge up with your toes. Oh my God. Wait a second. Now you got me guarded foolishly. On your backs, I go like this down. And I want to try to get out, but maybe you're holding me down. Yep. Go ahead. Hold me down. I need to get out of here. Right. All this stuff he doesn't do when you're doing this is punch. Right? So now when I go to get up, how flexible are your hips? I don't know. So you do that, and then you can start to slide your knee over, and then work any portion of this. That hurts so bad. Yeah. Holy cow. So now what you do is these in his hand. If you think about And I'm using Louis even though he's literally like the meanest son of a bitch you ever gonna
Yeah.
meet.
Well, he's a
So
Krav
we're
guy,
small.
right?
So one thing you worry about with a smaller person, say a woman, is getting picked up. Okay? Don't do it fast. So when I'm here, all he has to do is find my hand and staple it to his stomach. Oh! Right? Find my hand and staple it. Oh!
God.
Wherever you want to go with it, it hurts like you would not believe. Yeah. And the cycling that we do also works. So another cool thing you can do is instead you use the edge of the paddle. Right? Sorry, inmates. Oh boy. So say we're in a clinch here. Wherever you want, doesn't matter. You can hook and dig, grab it here, turn your head a little bit. Oh God. On the side of the nose into the sinus cavities. You can push up under the nose and then straight. Oh, it's flipping off.
See, aren't you glad I brought up the Protek Key?
Yes. So, but here's the good thing. Did I use a lot of force?
No.
No. So what's nice about this is you're small, you're big, it works. And it works through heavy winter clothing. Sure. Anything you want, right? Inevitably, if you're a guy, they always try to do this, don't do this. It's stupid and it'll hurt you, right? But all of those things work for a kid to make you let go so they can get away. And on the ground, it's freaking spectacular. It's hard to beat that, you know?
That's awesome.
Yeah, enjoy the Protek.
I appreciate it.